This video, we're going to work through some basic fundamentals and principles for area reconnaissance. We'll be looking at planning considerations, contingencies, and actions on the objective. As a disclaimer up front, you're going to see a few things that I would not do in a contested environment. Other than my gloves, this is the entire kit that I have on my person. I'm not out running and gunning. If anybody comes across me, all it's going to look like is that I'm scouting an area in preparation for hunting season. And that's important because you want to do this sort of reconnaissance work on the front end before the proverbial poop hits the oscillating rotator. Team, it's critical that you work through your contingencies and conduct all of your intelligence gathering before you need it, not in the midst of a worst case scenario. So we're gonna pack up, show you where we're at on the map. We're operating in a 12,000 square acre area, so it's pretty large. So we got a lot of ground to cover. Let's get to it. When I think about the route selection that you're making, one of the things that we need to take into consideration is, what is that footing like? In this case, it's a bed of thick and pretty durable moss, so it's really quiet. The only thing that's loud out here is me talking and Riggs whining. Pair that with maybe walking down a dry creek bed, for example. Again, two things wrong with that. One, it is a linear danger area that you can't work out of very easily. Two, it's easy for an observation post to have access up and down that danger area. And three, if it's dry, it's rocky, it's noisy. There's things that's going to give your presence away. You're going to have not very sure footing. Good pine forest, good moss. You can't ask for much better than that. And depending on what's in your area, you just need to know and understand what those variables are so that you can take them into your planning considerations on the front end, or even when you're just working through a contingency. Of course, area reconnaissance is the directed effort to obtain detailed information concerning the terrain or enemy activity in a prescribed area. It could be a town, a ridgeline, woods, or other feature that is critical to operations, including key terrain, linear obstacles, buildings, or other similar targets. You need to develop a detailed plan and locate the best vantage points for static ops, including short and long range observation. We're going to keep moving and heading towards our first observation post. Get set up and go through a few details there. pull up here and take a quick short pause. It's a good thing this isn't a mission. He's losing his mind. So I got field stripped MRE. This is beef stew. We're at a little checkpoint before we get to our observation point that we're looking for. Riggs, you're being too noisy. There you go. I feed the Riggs too, huh? A little bit of the huyas from inside. I'm gonna keep these baby wipes and shit powder and coffee, salt. Eat this vanilla pound cake. You get done, gotta make sure you pack out what you pack in. So you can use the same bag. Now everything's all in a bag that I can put back in my kit. Look at the map real quick, see where we're at. So we started off over here, we worked our way in, and now we're sitting up right about where my finger's at. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue to work up and around, and then come up over here and see if we can't get a visual on this road over here. No shit, there we were. Riggs and I getting ready to cross the road, and this other dude, and I don't see very many people out here at all, and this other guy was driving down, and I stopped him, and we're just jib-jabbing. He was off doing some scouting for some hunting. He'd recently gotten out of the military, and he'd been fighting with the VA for the last 3-4 years. It reminded me of my talking to my dad, Vietnam. He fought for decades to get the VA to start taking care of him. Agent Orange, shot. It's a shame so many vets have to struggle to get some physical or behavioral health services that they need. Together, I think we can do a better job of standing up for each and every single person who needs some help. Let's get geared up. We'll get out of here. All right, I don't see anything left behind, bud. Let's go. Right now we're on a pretty well-used route. You can kind of see it behind me here. Same stretching out in front of me. You may find routes like this through your area. Certainly using a least used route, bushwhacking is more efficient to maintain security. But sometimes, depending on the situation, you may need to find a route that you can use that's moving in a direction that you want it to help increase your speed, maybe separate yourself from somebody who's tracking you, or get you closer to where you're trying to go. But in everything you do, just know and understand that there's a risk associated with it, and be planned to work through those contingencies when they come up. Of course, I'm working in a completely permissive environment, so I can shift some of my routes around. Maybe you're doing this part of a reconnaissance prior to an incident happening, and you want to gather some information. If it was certainly contested, we'd not be moving in a great wide open space like this, right? What we're gonna do is move up and see if we can't get some eyes on our road. Now, and even though I'm in the middle of the wide open, right? What you need to understand is probability of detection, and this is regardless of what kind of environment that you're working in. In this case, this road is 1,000 meters or more off, and unless somebody had some really good optics, daytime or nighttime, you're not gonna see anything out this way. I got some decent elevation on me. Hopefully, here in a little bit, I'll be able to pick up some sign of the road. The only thing that's really going to give it away at this distance is glinting of a windshield. Permissive or not, we'll make use of this shadow for this big old Doug fir. Observe a little bit. Let's come around the other side. Uber. Oh, good job, bub. He's gonna have the time of his life coming up and over this lawn. I see one vehicle, but that's not the road. Ah, I see some movement. I'll let him come back around, and then we'll move again. So this will work. This is obviously not the most suitable, ideal location to do this, but down low, have all this shrubbery around us, it'll burn out. Should still be able to see the road. Meters off. So again, well beyond the reach of most optics, right? Daytime, especially nighttime, and the only thing they're going to hear is maybe him. This tree's blocking me, so I don't have to worry about them observing me looking out at this road. So again, you know, thinking about dismounted foot movement, right? Some of the principles that we need to consider is using covered and concealed position, moving from terrain feature to terrain feature. That's going to help guide you and keep you on the path of where you're trying to get off to. Kilometers away from our insertion point or our release point. And that's a positive thing because that separates in time and space the ability for any observer to be able to see our entrance into that observation post. We want to try to avoid likely ambush sites. Again, it's going to be those apex points in a road, hilltops, anywhere where anybody in a contested environment may use to try to set up their own observation post or listening post, LPs, OPs, or set up a defensive position. Practice noise, light, and litter discipline and maintain 360-degree security as you're moving. And again, we're also thinking about what's going on up and around us as well. And when you're conducting a reconnaissance patrol, you need to avoid contact at all costs. Move away from and retain the initiative to move into decisive action, and don't be forced into it by somebody else. Right, when we're thinking about planning considerations on the front end, you know, understanding and identifying that task and purpose, knowing your MET TC, your mission, enemy, terrain, troops, time, and civil considerations. You need to work through these things in finite detail and understand all of the contingencies that you need to be prepared for and execute rehearsals for them. Think about that distance and the direction from where you're starting to where you're going to try to go. Again, that's all going to be based off of the task and purpose at hand. It's also going to play into security measures that you take, both active and passive. And so we're talking about routes that we're taking, executing noise, light, litter, discipline, routes and stops that you make, as well as active measures that you may employ as well. It could be tripwires once you get set up into an observation post, things of this nature. I need to consider location of your key personnel, even the formations that you take. You know, hopefully you're not working in a single man situation, because that would be absolutely the most least desired thing that you could do. So you have a formation and a patrol. You know, you're thinking again about forward and rear security, thinking about your flanks, and then you know, supplies and packing lists. You know, what are you taking? You know, some of that's going to be based off of how far you're moving, how contested or permissive that environment is, as well as any special teams or considerations that you may have specifically for your mission at hand. General contingencies that we need to consider, of course, is avoiding contact with anybody at all times, even the passive, permissive dude who's driving down the road. You know, depending on the situation, it's not worth the security risk that you're going to assume by stopping and talking to somebody. Again, it could be a local farmer, rancher, businessman, somebody who's driving down the road, somebody who's stopped on the side of the road. You know, it may not be the time or place to lend a hand to somebody that you believe may be in need or is just an innocent bystander. You know, you can trust nobody in a contested environment. Constantly think about how you can move away from enemy contact or potential enemy contact, and establish how you're going to defend and resupply yourself as needed. Again, that's all going to be based off of your situation that you're planning and preparing for. You know, on a reconnaissance patrol, man, no eating, no sleeping unless it's authorized, no smoking, limit all unnecessary movement. Think about how you're going to collect your data. Not only physically, how are we going to collect it, thinking again, you know, things like binoculars, range finders, anything that we have that we can physically record using cameras, maybe even drone surveillance. But how are we going to bring that intelligence back so that it's actionable? Because you can't remember everything. Loop format is going to be the basic format that any report is going to essentially be framed off of. You need to be thinking about the size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment of everything that you're observing, so that you can bring that back and again making sure that it's actionable. And how much time are you going to spend in an observation post? Again, that's going to be based off of things that only you can answer in that moment, but it needs to be long enough to have confidence in what you are bringing back. And again, in this case, doing a area reconnaissance, we're looking at a road, so I'm thinking about, and I'm going to document how many vehicles I see total, and I'll be able to break that down as far as how many vehicles are passing every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every hour. If I needed to be out here all night, we could continue to do that. Any other personnel that we see moving in and out, I want to take all that back, as well as understanding what capabilities and equipment that may be out here. Again, you know, thinking of things in this nature, I could be looking at a route that I need to use for resupply. I could be looking at a route that I need to be using for transporting personnel or equipment, or dropping off, securing, storing a cache. Whatever the case is, you know, there's thousands of what ifs and reasons. So this road that we're looking at is about 1,000 meters straight ahead, and it cuts across, it's running north and south. On a clear day, we could see Mount Rainier through the trees and clouds up over here. We're just gonna wait here and observe a little bit. All right, so before we get any too much more action up and over here, we're gonna go ahead and take off, take it back, and go find our truck and do a little debrief. All right, making it back to the old truck, and burned some calories today. So I hope you did enjoy the content of the video. Again, I know that there's a few specific things when it comes, especially to reconnaissance work and working in a permissive or non-permissive environment, that we didn't demonstrate and work through, especially as it relates to movement, some camouflage and concealment, and establishing that observation post. So maybe these will be some things that we can work through in a later video. We can try to do that as well. But there's just so much to this in order to try to fit into a particular video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you like it. Consider sharing this out with a friend or battle buddy as well. Because man, my flask is filled with the tears of a commie every time that you do. Make sure you leave some comments down below. That way we can continue to keep this conversation rolling. As always, I appreciate each and every single one of y'all. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.